Wow.
Right.
By the way, speaking of horror, Wade, the last film of the week, which
you
will
are
be
really good today. That was really good.
He's on it.
I'm on it. By the way,
Johnny Segway, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. Good night, everyone. The next film, which will be the biggest film of the weekend, I think, unless How to Train Your Dragon winds up with another number one. That's crazy.
This will pull in over 30 million.
It'll wind up being Nightmare on Elm Street.
The reboot.
The reboots. Now, Nightmare on Elm Street is obviously based on the 1984 original. And
the Wes Craven.
The Wes Craven 1984 original. And before we talk about the film, which we have a lot to say about, let's take a look at a clip.
Open your books to page 84. To further complicate matters, the Spartans were armed with a variety of weapons, some of them even improvised, and they would not hesitate to slaughter even children, especially the children of soldiers. This is where the...
Wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up.
You really shouldn't fall asleep in class. Hi, Chris.
Who are you?
You look just as beautiful as ever. You have nothing to worry about. This won't hurt. One little bit.
The movie is a production of Platinum Dunes, which is the production company run by Michael Bay. And basically they specialize in rebooting 80s horror films. Platinum Dunes did Friday the 13th, the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the new Amityville Horror, and of course, what do all these films have in common? They all suck.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing: is that when you're getting a Michael Bay film, you know what you're getting. You're getting it's shot through a blast furnace. There's absolutely no subtlety in it. There's no character. There's no story. It's just a bunch of lighting and boo moments and sound effects, and that's really what you get here. And what's funny is that if you look at the 1984 film, there's a lot about it that doesn't necessarily hold up, but when your budget is $1.8 million, which is what it was in 1984, as opposed to $27 million, which is what this new Nightmare on Elm Street is, what you get is you are forced to be creative. And you are forced to find different ways to tell your story in an exciting, suspenseful way. Whereas here, you throw the big lighting at it, you throw the big sound mix at it, and that's all you need. That's all you need. And the film, it's really, here's the thing. If you're grading on a curve, and this is the best thing I'll say about it, if you're grading on a curve, the film is acceptably mediocre. But really, as a horror film, it's just not very good.
But can high-budget horror be scary? Because to me, again, I always go back to the camera is the actor. I always do that when I'm directing, and to me, if the special effects don't make it scary. I think it takes away from scary. It's too smooth. It's too polished. You want the camera to do things. You want to hide things. You want things to jump out at you.
You have to look at who's involved. You've got a music video director making his film debut, a guy named Samuel Bayer, who is best known for the "Smells Like Teen Spirit" music video from Nirvana. He's making his film debut finally. So he's basically a music video guy. What does he know from story and character? Nothing. You've got Platinum Dunes, who've done nothing but reboot these horrible 80s films. So you got that. So they have an aesthetic. And the thing with their aesthetic is that it just does not lend itself to the type of film that builds the suspense that you want to see in these types of movies where you get smarter directors and smarter producers. And here's the thing, and then I'll let you go, but the movie was written by Wesley Strick, who's not a horrible screenwriter. No. Wesley Strick co-wrote Cape Fear, the Scorsese Cape Fear. So at least he knows what it's like to ratchet up the moments, but that's just not
But
the
you can only
deal
you can only do that so much as a screenwriter. Here's the thing: if you go back to all of these original franchises from the late '70s and the early '80s, whether it's Friday the 13th or Halloween, in particular Nightmare on Elm Street, they're Wes Craven, John Carpenter. They're generally low-budget, auteur-driven films. It's a filmmaker who has a vision, who has a lot of experience working with low-budget films, who has very little money to work with, and somehow brings it all to bear on a very, very original vision. In this case, they don't have that original vision. They're working with the previous vision, and so they're kind of coloring inside the lines. And to deflect your attention away from the fact that they're really just replicating something that was done pretty darn well previously, they throw a lot of money at it, hoping that that somehow ups it to another level. But the lack of originality and the fact that they're so reverential about not stepping astray outside of the legend that they're following, it makes it somehow safe. It makes it, the risk isn't there, you know. And the other thing here is, I got to say, Jackie Earle Haley, I think the world of him. I think he's a great actor. I'm thrilled that his career is back on track. He's a terrific Freddy. He's a great guy to step in after Robert Englund and to take Freddy in a different place. I wish they had trusted him more, because what he does here, and this is the only film where he'll have a chance to do it, because the origin of Freddy is part of this. You know, when you see him before he's burned and what he was, there's a chance for him to really do some great acting there, but he never gets the chance to do it. He's instead encased and encapsulated in these audio effects and the lighting and all of the junk that they think is really what's scary, when what would have been scary was to let him just act scary. Let him do what he does.
There is nothing there was nothing creepy in this film that was not creepier in Little Children.
Absolutely.
Now, in Little Children, where he earned an Oscar nomination
Yeah.
and it relaunched his career, there were some creepy moments, but there you've got a real director and you've got a real writer who are willing to let moments build and willing to let things be creepy. The thing is, from the Michael Bay school, it's not about building suspense or building tension. And I think part of the problem of the film is that it was poorly edited, because the movie it starts in fifth gear and then it just goes. And even thrill rides have to eventually slow down, because then you feel the thrills more.
Absolutely.
This is basically just in fifth gear and then it goes.
Yeah.
And that's it. And it's just really, it just doesn't build the suspense.
It lacks, what they needed to do was to just back off a little and trust Jackie Earle Haley to carry much more of the movie on his shoulders. To, you know, let him do it without all of the intervention that you're accustomed to. But, you know, this guy, he's you know, Samuel Bayer, he's a music video guy, and that's all he knows how to do, is to bring technique to the table. So, and unfortunately, he's the wrong guy for it. And, you know, the script is serviceable. It's more or less a rewrite of the first, with a few things that don't work quite so well and a couple things that maybe work a little bit better.
They tell you a lot more about Freddy's past, his backstory, and they change it a little bit. And there's something else that
it should have been so much better.
It should have been.
It should have been.
And also, you know, there's something about all these films, especially the Michael Bay, the Platinum Dune stuff, is that all these teenagers that they cast in these films, they're all these Twilight rejects. You know, like even the ugly kid is like movie ugly, but he's really like, you know, a handsome young kid. You know, and even like the loner girl, who's sort of the one who carries the film. She's like this hot girl, and she's like the loner, the outsider.
It's like The Hills transplanted into a horror film.
You know, it's like everybody lives in this town, and the whole town is filled with kids who just do nothing but
Stepford teens.
They're Stepford teens who are just they're auditioning for you know, for Twilight films.
That's what happened in Cloverfield too. It was a WB movie. It was just the cast from WB putting a movie when it could have been good, and then you just watch it and you're like, what's going on here?
What's
is
funny?
Is that just the Hollywood, I guess?
No, that's not the Hollywood thing. That's the Michael Bay Platinum Dunes remade the '80s horror film thing. Because don't forget, I mean, these films exist to attract a teen audience.
Yeah.
And teens want to be scared, and they want to see hot teens. That's what they want to. That's what they want to do.
Good point.
You know,
and it'll open well. Look, there will be another one. The franchise has been rebooted. We could say the worst things about this movie. There will be another one. Hopefully, they'll get a better director. Hopefully, they'll let Jackie Earle Haley be himself, or at least a heavily made-up version of himself.
That's true. And you know what? And how good does the film have to do to warrant a new one? It cost about $27 million to make it.
It's going to open with more than 30.
It'll open more than 30.
It'll probably top out around 60, 70, somewhere like that.
Right.
And it'll do fairly well for it, and DVD, and it'll be fine. I mean, it's the model for these films, regardless of what we say, it's review proof, so we're fine.
Well, also but the model is based on budget. The budget really drives that model.
Always.
Because you got to keep the cost down enough.
Yeah.